Between 1960 and 1985, the FBI documented over 400 unsolved murders tied directly to New York's 5 families, over 400. And in all of that blood, all of that silence, all of those bodies that were never found, almost none of them involved a man being killed by the very person who was supposed to protect him. This is one of those stories. You know the scene. Goodfellas. Jimmy Conway gets the phone call. The camera stays on his face. He slams the receiver down, shoves over a telephone booth, and weeps openly, completely, without shame. A man who has ordered murders without blinking. A man who has buried bodies and gone home and eaten dinner and slept like a baby. That man is standing in the middle of a Queen Street, sobbing for Tommy DeVito. The film cuts away. Tommy is gone. The title card gives you a clean explanation. Billy Batts was a made man. The Gambinos came for Tommy 9 years later. Simple, final, over. But that is not what happened. The film never shows you the man who actually gave the order. John Gotti wanted Tommy DeSimone dead, that part is true. But Gotti could not move alone. He needed permission from someone higher. And the man who gave that permission is someone Goodfellas presents as Tommy's greatest protector. The man who kept Tommy alive through 15 years of chaos, 15 years of bodies, 15 years of things that should have gotten Tommy killed a dozen times over. His name was Paul Vario. And the story of how Tommy DeSimone's own capo became the man who handed him to his killers, that story is built on 9 years of damage, one personal violation that crossed a line no amount of money could fix, and a single sit-down where Vario looked Gotti in the eye and said, yes. Every fact in what follows is verified and documented. This is the full story. June 6th, 1946, Queens, New York. Thomas DeSimone is not born into poverty and then finds the mob. He is born inside it. His grandfather was a Los Angeles mob figure in 1922. His uncle Frank DeSimone was the boss of the entire Los Angeles crime family by 1956, confirmed in FBI field office records declassified in 2007. His brothers Robert and Anthony are both Gambino associates, the same family that will one day order his death. His sister Phyllis becomes Jimmy Burke's mistress at 16 years old. The mob is not a door Tommy opens. It is the house he is born in. He is 15 when he joins Paul Vario's crew in 1965. Paul Vario Sr., born July 9th, 1914 inches, Brooklyn, is by then one of the most powerful capos in the Lucchese family, one of New York's 5 families, operating across Queens and Brooklyn under boss Carmine Tramonti. A skinny kid, pencil mustache, wise guy suit, that is how Henry Hill describes him, to Nicholas Pileggi for the Wise Guy book. Tommy shines shoes. Tommy runs errands. Tommy watches and learns and waits. And somewhere in those early years, something becomes very clear about who Tommy DeSimone is. He has a temper that does not simmer. It does not build slowly. It detonates, without warning, without calculation, without any thought whatsoever about what comes after. Hill calls him, plainly and without drama, a pure psychopath. At approximately 17 years old, Tommy is walking down the street with Hill when he sees a stranger, turns to Hill, says, "Watch this," and shoots the man dead, just to see if he could, just because the thought arrived and nothing stopped it. Hill says that was cold-blooded. Tommy just shrugs. "Well," he says, "I'm a mean cat." He carries 2 guns everywhere. Every single day. People start calling him Two-Gun Tommy. He throws darts at other players mid-game when he starts losing. He carries a pistol to hijackings in a brown paper bag, walking down the street like he's bringing someone lunch. Hill tells Pileggi, "He looked like he was bringing you a sandwich instead of a .38. Paul Vario knows exactly what Tommy is, and he protects him anyway, because Tommy belongs to Jimmy Burke's crew, and Jimmy Burke makes Paul Vario more money than anyone else alive. Protecting Tommy is the price of keeping Burke happy. For years, it is a price Vario considers reasonable. That calculation begins to change on June 11th, 1970. Henry Hill's Club, The Suite, Jamaica, Queens. There is a welcome home party for William Billy Batts Benfina, a made man in the Gambino family, just released after 6 years in federal prison for narcotics trafficking. Benfina is 49 years old. He got his button in 1961 through Carmine Fatico's crew, the same Bergen crew where a young John Gotti is coming up at the very same time. Billy Batts and John Gotti are personal friends. And in the language of La Cosa Nostra, Billy Batts is untouchable, formally inducted, commission protected. Killing him without authorization is not just a crime, it is a declaration of war. Tommy DeSimone is at the party. At some point during the evening, Benfina, drunk, happy, 6 years removed from the streets, sees Tommy and asks him if he still shines shoes. It is a joke. A throwaway line from a man who has been away and remembers a kid running errands. Billy Batts does not understand what he is talking to. He does not know that the shoeshine boy standing in front of him has spent the last 5 years becoming someone you do not joke with. He does not know that the question about the shoes is a match, and Tommy DeSimone is a room full of gasoline. Tommy leans over to Hill and Burke. I'm going to kill that fuck. Hill and Burke spend the entire night managing the situation. They keep Benfina drinking. They keep Tommy away from him. They talk Tommy down once, twice, 3 times. And then Benfina, still drunk, still completely unaware of how close he is to dying, asks them to shine his shoes one more time before he leaves. Tommy is pulled away again. Benfina walks out. The night ends. 2 weeks later, Benfina is back in the club, and Tommy walks in with Burke and Hill. He pistol whips Billy Batts to the floor, screaming, "Shine these shoes at him," while he beats him. When Benfina stops moving, they wrap him in a tablecloth, carry him to the trunk of Hill's car, and drive. They stop at Tommy's mother's house. He comes back with a knife, a bag of lime, and a shovel. On the road upstate, they hear something from the trunk. Benfina is still alive. They stop the car. They open the trunk. They finish it with a shovel and a tire iron. They bury him in a dog kennel owned by a friend of Burke's. 3 men killed Billy Batts. Nobody asked permission. Nobody even paused to consider what it meant. Now think about what Paul Verio is sitting with. One of his men, not even a made man, an associate, has just murdered a formally inducted member of the Gambino crime family, a personal friend of John Gotti. Without authorization, without any sanction whatsoever from the commission, Verio finds out. He helps move the body when the kennel becomes a liability. He is now complicit. He absorbs it. He keeps the secret. He tells himself Burke earns too much. He tells himself the alternative is worse. He waits. He will wait 9 years. December 1974. Tommy adds a second Gambino grievance to the first. Ronald Foxy Jerathy is a Gambino associate, a personal friend of John Gotti from the Bergen crew in Ozone Park. Tommy is dating Jerothy's sister. When he beats her, Jerothy makes a direct threat he will kill Tommy for it. When Tommy hears this, he does not wait. He does not think. He walks to Jerothy's apartment and shoots him dead. Another Gotti man, another unsanctioned killing, another debt logged in Gotti's memory. Verio absorbs this one, too. He has no choice. But the ledger is growing. And then something happens that has nothing to do with the Gambinos. Something personal. 1972. Henry Hill is in Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary serving time for extortion. In his absence, Paul Verio begins an affair with Karen Hill. This is documented in Hill's 1994 book, Gangsters and Goodfellas. Karen Hill is in her mid-20s, alone with 2 children on Long Island, and her husband's boss begins a relationship with her. By the code of this world, this means something specific. Karen Hill is now under Paul Verio's personal protection. Tommy DeSimone knows about the affair. Multiple accounts confirm it. And while Hill is in prison, Tommy approaches Karen Hill for sex. She refuses. He attempts to rape her. Karen Hill tells Paul Verio, "Stop here for a moment, because this is the moment everything changes. Not Billy Batts in 1970, not Foxy Geroth in 1974. This. Tommy has not just crossed a line that affects the Gambinos or the Commission or Burke's earning potential. He has violated a woman under Paul Vario's direct personal protection. He has put his hands on someone Vario cares about. That is a different kind of line. And for the first time in 15 years, the math stops working in Tommy's favor. December 11th, 1978. John F. Kennedy Airport, Jamaica, Queens. Tommy participates in the Lufthansa heist. $5.875 million in cash, $875,000 in jewelry, over $6.7 million total, the largest cash robbery in American history at that point, according to FBI case documentation. During the heist, Tommy briefly lifts his ski mask. A Lufthansa cargo worker sees his face. When the FBI investigation begins the same day, that worker identifies Tommy from a mugshot. He is now the most direct line between the heist and Vario's entire operation. 9 years of Gambino grievances, the violation of Karen Hill, now a federal exposure that could bring down everything. Vario makes a decision. He calls a sit-down with John Gotti. The sit-down is documented across multiple sources: Hill's testimony, the Lufthansa heist book, primary source research from the Gangland History podcast. Gotti arrives furious. The man who killed his friend Billy Batts and his associate Foxy Geroth is about to be formally inducted into the Lucchese family as a made man. Gotti getting rewarded with an institutional insult like that Tommy receiving the button after murdering 2 Gambino-connected men is something Gotti will not accept. He tells Vario, in words documented by multiple mob insiders, "This is as bad as putting a cactus up my ass." Vario listens, and then, quietly, Paul Vario, the man who has protected Tommy DeSimone for 15 years, says yes. Nobody knew Tommy had done it, Hill later tells Pileggi, but the Gambino people had somehow gotten the proof. They had a sit-down with Paulie and they got Paulie's okay to kill Tommy. Even Jimmy couldn't avenge Tommy. It was a Sicilian thing. Read that again. Even Jimmy couldn't avenge Tommy. Jimmy Burke, the man who organized the Lufthansa heist, the most feared non-made associate in New York, a man who has killed or ordered the killing of 16 people in the month since the robbery alone, cannot save Tommy DeSimone. The commission has made its decision. Paul Vario has signed the warrant. There is no appeal. There is no negotiation. There is nowhere to go. And the cruelest part, the part that makes this story unlike almost any other, is how they do it. They decide to use the one thing Tommy has wanted his entire life. They tell him he is going to be made. Late December 1978. Tommy DeSimone has wanted his button since he was 15 years old. He has hijacked and killed and bled and endured 15 years in this world, staring at the one thing he cannot have. Because his mother is Irish. Because La Cosa Nostra requires full Italian heritage for induction, Tommy has been standing at the door his entire career, looking in, never allowed to enter. Now they tell him the door is finally open. He dresses in his best clothes. He goes to his mother. He says goodbye to her the way a man says goodbye when he believes his whole life is about to change. His wife Angela tells police she last saw him weeks earlier when he borrowed $60 from her. His brother-in-law, Joseph the barber, Sione, Angela's brother, is asked to help bring Tommy to the location. Sione refuses. He cannot be part of killing his own brother-in-law. They murder him for saying no. The family kills Sione for the refusal. Peter Vario, Paul Vario's own son, and Bruno Faccioli pick Tommy up and drive him to the ceremony location in Belmont, the Bronx. He arrives. He walks in, and the room is empty. No commission representatives, no ritual, no witnesses, nobody. Just an empty room and the sudden, devastating understanding of exactly what has been done to him. The one word Tommy DeSimone says in that moment, according to the documented accounts, "Oh no." The same 2 words Parnell Stacks Edwards said when Tommy and Angelo Sepe shot him 6 times in the head for parking a van at a fire hydrant. The same two words that appear again and again in the documented record of this crew, in the mouths of men who have just understood that they have run out of road. Who pulls the trigger is a question history cannot answer with certainty. Henry Hill says on The Howard Stern Show in May 2007 that John Gotti personally killed Tommy, and that it took a long time because Billy Batts had been his friend, and Gotti needed Tommy to know why. Mob informant Joe Dogs Iannuzzi says the triggerman was Gambino soldier Thomas Tommy Agro, who allegedly admits it to Iannuzzi years later and jokes about killing Tommy's brother Anthony too, then says, maybe it's time to go for the DeSimone trifecta. A third account from former Gambino associate Greg Boucherin places the murder at Jimmy Burke's own home in Queens, with the body driven to a Philadelphia scrap metal yard and crushed into an automobile destined for U.S. Steel. If that account is true and it comes from a named source, not speculation, Tommy DeSimone became processed metal, shipped to a steel company, gone down to the last molecule. His body has never been found. Paul Vario Sr. was arrested in 1984 on federal extortion charges, convicted under RICO, sentenced to 10 years, and died inside the federal medical facility at Devens, Massachusetts on May 3rd, 1988. Still in custody. Jimmy Burke was convicted in 1985 for the murder of Richard Eaton and died at Sullivan Correctional Facility on April 13th, 1996. Henry Hill entered witness protection in 1980, testified in over 50 criminal proceedings, and died on June 12, 2012 inches, Los Angeles. John Gotti, the man who sat across from Vario and heard the word yes, beat 3 separate trials through the 1980s before being convicted in 1,992 on 13 counts, undone finally by his own underboss, Salvatore Sammy the Bull Gravano. He died in federal custody on June 10, 2002. The 1,986 commission trial convicted all 5 New York bosses simultaneously under RICO and broke open the infrastructure that had protected men like Tommy and destroyed them for decades. Tommy DeSimone had been dead for 9 years by the time that institution collapsed in open court. He never got his button. He never got a trial. He never got a grave with his name on it. He got an empty room, 2 words, and a door that closed. The man Goodfellas never showed you the man who signed the warrant. The man who said yes outlived him by nearly a decade, died in a prison bed, and never said a word about it publicly, not once. The one thing Paul Vario never gave Tommy DeSimone in life or in death was an explanation. He just said yes, and that was enough.